where the Chicago River meets Lakeshore Drive. Sitting on prime real estate in one of America's wealthiest cities, there is a gaping 76-foot deep hole in the ground. It is surrounded by chain-link fences and filled with trash. This crater was excavated in the summer of 2007. It was supposed to hold the foundation for the Chicago Spire, envisioned by star architect Santiago Calatrava to be a 2,000-foot spiraling tower. At 150 stories, it would have easily claimed the title of the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere. But in the fall of 2008, the global credit market seized. The project's main backer, Anglo-Irish Bank, was severely impacted by the crash. Funding evaporated, construction halted, and the dream of the Spire collapsed into a century-old dirt pit. The Chicago Spire is part of a quiet ghost town lineage in urban design, the architecture of impossibility. These are the blueprints and scale models that pushed right up against the absolute limits of human ambition, engineering capability, and socio-political willpower, and lost. It is easy to look at a multi-million-dollar hole in the ground, or a dusty scale model, and see a failure of physics or economics. But these dead blueprints serve a specific function. By examining the friction between what a designer envisioned and what reality permitted, we find the exact intellectual experiments that hold the DNA of our future cities. At a small Chicago press conference in 1956, American architect Frank Lloyd Wright announced his intention to build a structure he called the Illinois. Looking at this vertical comparison, the sheer scale of the proposal becomes clear. Wright designed the Illinois to be exactly 1 mile high. Spanning 528 stories, it would provide 18 million square feet of floor space, enough to permanently house over 100,000 people, with parking for 15,000 cars and 100 helicopters. It was 4 times the height of the Empire State Building, the tallest structure in the world at the time. Steel towers of that height face a severe physical hurdle: extreme oscillation. High winds cause the upper floors to sway violently, a dynamic that makes the space uninhabitable. Wright's solution was the taproot. He modeled the foundation after a tree, dropping a 15-story deep substructure into the earth to anchor a rigid central concrete and steel core. Moving a population the size of a small city through a single vertical space required abandoning traditional cables entirely. Wright proposed 76 tandem elevators. Running on ratchets, they would be atomic-powered, designed to travel at a mile a minute, 3 times faster than modern elevator mechanics. The Illinois had no site, no client, and 0 budget. The metallurgical science required to build it simply did not exist in 1956. Yet, by drafting the exact math required to reach 5,280 feet, Wright dismantled the psychological ceiling of vertical engineering. He forced the architectural community to calculate the wind loads of a mile-high structure, shifting the debate from whether it could be done to when. By the mid-20th century, the existential threats facing urban centers changed. The priority moved from reaching maximum vertical height towards solving the mounting pressures of global overpopulation and sprawling pollution. In the 1960s, the inventor and architect Buckminster Fuller proposed Cloud 9. Instead of building up from the ground, Fuller drafted airborne cities. Entire communities would live inside massive, free-floating geodesic spheres that drifted above the landscape, liberating the Earth's surface below for agriculture. This relies on the physics of aerostatics. As a sphere expands, the volume it encloses grows far faster than the mass of the enclosing structure. Fuller calculated that a geodesic sphere half a mile in diameter would weigh only 1,000th of the weight of the air inside it. If that internal air is heated by just 1 single degree Fahrenheit, even solely by the body heat of the residents and ambient solar energy, the entire city becomes buoyant. 3 decades later, in 1995, Japan's Taisei Corporation proposed a different environmental hack, the Exceed 4000. They designed a 2.5-mile-high steel megastructure for Tokyo Bay, intending to house up to 1 million people. To manage a base 3.7 miles wide, they chose to model the structure after Mount Fuji. But an internal volume that massive creates lethal physics. Occupants living at the top of a 2.5-mile structure face severe pressure gradations and extreme weather fluctuations compared to those at sea level. Keeping residents alive would require sealing the structure and running a $1 trillion artificial weather control system to regulate the internal atmosphere. The ultimate barrier for these floating spheres and steel mountains was the thermodynamic cost. Isolating an ecosystem from the natural world and manually pumping in life support for 1 million people requires a scale of continuous energy production that breaks any economic model. Long before designers tried to hack the sky, they tried to hack the map. In the late 1920s, German architect Hermann Sorgel observed a fragmented, war-torn Europe, struggling with unemployment and an unfolding energy crisis. His solution was Atlantropa. Sorgel's math centered on building a 22-mile-long hydroelectric dam across the Strait of Gibraltar, effectively sealing off the Mediterranean Sea from the Atlantic Ocean. Over a few decades, natural evaporation would lower the Mediterranean by as much as 200 meters. This mechanism would generate enormous amounts of electricity, calculated at 120 gigawatts, and reclaim 600,000 square kilometers of new land. That is an area the size of France, harvested from the seabed, literally connecting Europe and Africa by dry land. Sorgel dedicated 25 years to promoting Atlantropa. It failed entirely because it treated the sovereignty of Mediterranean and African nations as irrelevant. Coastal communities across Italy, Greece, and North Africa would have found themselves stranded hundreds of miles inland as the sea receded. Atlantropa proves that sheer engineering math cannot bypass geopolitical reality. We still test these boundaries today. Saudi Arabia recently broke ground on The Line, a proposed 170-kilometer-long mirror desert megalopolis. But facing extreme heat, wind conditions, and mounting costs, engineers have already had to heavily scale back the original ambitious phases. To label these visionary projects as failures misinterprets their actual function. They exist as intellectual provocations designed to force the engineering discipline to ask why not instead of how to. Frank Lloyd Wright never secured the billions needed for the Illinois, but his theoretical taproot and buttressed core design directly laid the groundwork for the structural engineering that allows the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building standing today, to survive extreme desert wind loads. Buckminster Fuller's Cloud9 cities never floated, but the complex geometry he proved with his spheres established the foundational math for modern, lightweight, sustainable architecture that reduces material waste. These unbuilt megaprojects are immortal. They will never rust, face foreclosure, or be demolished. They exist outside of time as permanent roadmaps, absorbing the ridicule of their present day, waiting patiently for human technology